You were raised to be comfortable. You were raised to seek security. You were told that a stable job, a predictable routine, and a life free of friction would bring you peace, and you believed it. You optimized your life for comfort. You avoided conflict. You stayed quiet when you should have spoken. You bent when you should have stood firm. You made yourself smaller so that others would feel safe around you. And now you wonder why no one respects you. You wonder why your word carries no weight. You wonder why you feel invisible in rooms where decisions are made. You are not invisible because you lack talent. You are invisible because you trained yourself to be harmless. And harmless men do not command attention. They do not inspire respect. They are managed, not followed. Here is what that looks like in real time. You are in a meeting at work. Someone takes credit for your idea. You feel the anger rise in your chest, but you say nothing. You tell yourself it is not worth the fight. You tell yourself you will address it later. You never do, and the next time the same thing happens. Because silence in that moment was not diplomacy, it was a submission. You accepted their frame, you allowed them to define the situation, and once you do that, you lose. Or this. You are in a relationship. Your partner decides without consulting you. You feel disrespected. But instead of addressing it directly, you hint at your frustration. You make passive comments. You hope they will notice your dissatisfaction and adjust. They do not. Because you never drew a line. You never made it clear that certain behaviors are unacceptable. You optimized for peace instead of respect. And now you are tolerated, not valued. Or this. A friend asks you for a favor. You are busy. You have your own priorities. But you say yes anyway. Because saying no feels uncomfortable. Because you do not want to seem selfish. So you sacrifice your time, your energy, your focus. And they take it. Not because they are using you, but because you taught them that your time has no cost. You made yourself available. You made yourself convenient. And convenience does not inspire respect, it inspires entitlement. These are not isolated moments, these are patterns. And patterns reveal something more profound. They reveal that you were trained to prioritize comfort over strength. You were taught to avoid discomfort at all costs. You were trained to be helpful, agreeable, and obedient. You were never trained to be powerful. Nietzsche understood this. He saw that comfort does not build men. It weakens them. He saw that security is a slow poison. It makes you soft. It makes you dependent. It makes you afraid of anything that threatens your stability. And once you become so scared of discomfort, you lose the ability to impose your will on the world. You stop shaping your environment. You start reacting to it. You become passive. And passive men do not lead. They follow. They adapt. They survive. But they do not dominate. This script will walk you through 7 psychological reversals, 7 truths that contradict everything you were taught about strength, respect, and power. Most of you will leave before the end because these truths are uncomfortable. They require you to abandon the moral framework you were raised in. They require you to see that what feels kind is often weak, what feels cold is often effective, and what feels right is often the reason you have no leverage. If you are still here, that tells me something. It tells me you're ready to see the game clearly. It tells me you're willing to trade comfort for clarity. Put your phone face down. Turn off distractions. Listen carefully, because once you understand these reversals, you cannot unsee them. And once you cannot unsee them, you have a choice. You either adjust your behavior and reclaim your authority, or you stay where you are and stay in control. If this hit you right, I am the strategist, once in the comments, just to mark the day your mindset changed. Now let us begin. You react when someone disrespects you. You defend yourself. You explain your position. You justify your actions. And you think you are standing up for yourself. You are not. You are handing them authority. Because the moment you react, you accept their frame. You acknowledge that their opinion of you matters. You accept that their judgment has weight. And once you accept that, you lose. Here is what that looks like. Someone insults you in front of others. You feel the need to respond immediately. You fire back. You match their energy. You make sure everyone knows you will not be disrespected, and in that moment you think you won, but you did not. Because they set the terms of engagement, they decided when the confrontation would happen, they chose the tone, they chose the stakes, and you followed. You stepped into their court. You played their game. And even if you won the exchange, you lost the frame. Nietzsche called this slave morality. The need to be seen as good, the need to be validated by others, the need to prove your worth in someone else's evaluation system. And that need makes you weak, because it means your sense of self is contingent on external approval. It means you are constantly performing for an audience. And when you perform, you are not in control. The audience is. Here is the reversal. Silence in the face of disrespect is not weakness, it is dominance. Because silence forces the other person to sit with their accusation, it forces them to wonder if you even registered their attack. It forces them to question whether they matter enough to provoke a response. And that uncertainty destabilizes them. They expected a reaction. They expected you to defend yourself. When you do not, they lose their footing. Because now they are the ones seeking validation. They are the ones wondering if their words carried any weight. And in that moment, the frame flips. You do not need to defend yourself to people who do not have authority over you. You do not need to explain yourself to people who have not earned access to your reasoning. When you defend, you validate the premise that you are being evaluated. When you explain, you validate the premise that they have the right to question you. And once you validate those premises, you lose your leverage. This is not about being passive, this is about being selective. Responding to every challenge, every insult, every criticism makes you predictable. And predictable men are easy to control. Because if someone knows exactly how to provoke you, they can manipulate your behavior whenever they want. They can stabilize you on command, and that gives them power over you. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is refusal. Refusal to play a game you did not consent to. Refusal to accept someone else's evaluation criteria. Refusal to hand over your attention and emotional energy to someone who has not earned it. And that refusal creates distance, and distance creates authority. You explain yourself constantly. You over-communicate. You make sure everyone understands your reasoning. This makes it clear. You think this makes you trustworthy. It does not. It makes you weak. Because explanation is justification, and justification is submission. Here is what that looks like. Your boss questions a decision you made. You immediately launch into a detailed explanation. You walk them through every step of your reasoning. You justify every choice. You make sure they see that you thought it through, and you think this demonstrates competence. It does not. It demonstrates insecurity. Confident people do not feel the need to justify their decisions to everyone who questions them. They state their position. They move forward. And if someone does not understand, that is their problem. Nietzsche understood that true strength does not explain itself, it simply is. The lion does not justify its dominance. It does not debate its position in the hierarchy. It occupies its position with certainty. And that certainty commands respect, because certainty is rare. Most people are drowning in doubt. They second-guess themselves constantly. They seek validation at every turn. And when they encounter someone who does not, it unsettles them because they cannot read you, they cannot predict you, and they cannot control you. Here is the reversal. Every time you explain yourself to someone who did not ask with genuine curiosity, you weaken your position. Because explanation implies that your authority is conditional, it means that you need their approval to proceed. And once you create that implication, they start testing you. They start questioning you more frequently, not because they need clarity, but because they learn that questioning you gives them power. They knew that you would bend, you will justify, you will perform. Stop explaining yourself to people who are not genuinely trying to understand. Stop justifying your decisions to people who have already decided you are wrong. State your position once, clearly, calmly, and move forward. If they do not understand, that is not your problem. If they disagree, that is not your responsibility. Your job is not to convince everyone. Your job is to act with certainty. And certainty does not beg for validation. This does not mean you refuse all feedback. It means you distinguish between people who question you because they want to understand and people who question you because they want to control. The first group deserves your time. The second group deserves your indifference. And learning to tell the difference is how you protect your authority. You make yourself available. You respond immediately to messages. You pick up the phone whenever it rings. You drop what you're doing to accommodate others. And you think this makes you reliable. You think this makes you valuable. It does not. It makes you accessible. And accessibility is not respected. It is convenient. Here is what that looks like. Someone texts you. You see the notification. You feel the pull to respond immediately. You tell yourself it will only take a minute. You tell yourself it is rude to leave them waiting. So you respond. Instantly. Every time. And over time, they learn something. They know that you are always available. They know that your attention costs nothing, and they realize that you will rearrange your priorities to accommodate theirs. And once they understand that, you lose leverage. Nietzsche spoke of the herd, the mass of people who live reactively, those who follow the path of least resistance, who prioritize comfort and approval over strength and autonomy. And one of the most evident signs of herd mentality is constant availability, because constant availability signals that you have nothing more important to do. It signals that your time is not valuable. It signals that you are waiting to be helpful to someone else. And that signal destroys respect. Here is the reversal. Distance creates value. Scarcity creates desire. When you are not immediately available, people start to wonder what you are doing. They begin to wonder if they still have access to you. They begin to question their position in your priorities, and that questioning makes them more careful with your time. It makes them more intentional when they reach out. It makes them respect your attention because they know it is not guaranteed. This is not about playing games. This is not about ignoring people to manipulate them. This is about protecting your time and energy so that when you do engage, it matters. When you respond to everything immediately, your responses lose weight, they become noise. But when you respond selectively, your words carry authority, because people know you chose to engage. You were not reacting, you were deciding. Apply this everywhere. At work, do not respond to every message the moment it arrives. Let some things sit. Let people wait, not because you are ignoring them, but because you are prioritizing your focus. In relationships, do not be constantly available. Have your own life. Have your own life. Have your own priorities. Have your own space. Not to create distance for the sake of distance, but to create space where respect can grow. Because respect does not grow in constant contact, it grows in the space between. And here is what happens when you apply this. People start valuing your time. They start preparing before they reach out to you. They start thinking carefully about what they ask, because they know you will not drop everything to accommodate them. And that shift, that slight shift in how they approach you, changes the entire dynamic. You are no longer being managed. You are the one setting terms. You seek approval from people who do not respect you. You try to win over people who have already dismissed you. You bend yourself into unnatural shapes just to gain acceptance, and you think this is a strategy. You think this is social intelligence. It is not. It is desperation, and desperation repels respect. Here is what that looks like. Someone clearly does not value you. They cancel plans. They respond late. They show minimal effort. And instead of walking away, you double down. You try harder. You become more accommodating. You convince yourself that if you just prove your value, they will see it. They will not, because people do not respect what they can access without effort. They respect what remains out of reach. Nietzsche spoke of the will to power, the drive to assert your own values, your own frame, your own reality onto the world. And one of the most apparent violations of that will is seeking validation from people who do not value you. Because when you do that, you abandon your own frame, you step into theirs, you accept their evaluation criteria, You take their judgment as legitimate. And once you do that, you lose the game before it even starts. Here is the reversal. Withdraw attention from people who do not value it. Do not argue, do not explain, do not try to convince them of your worth. Simply remove your presence, because your presence is the only leverage you have. And when you remove it, one of two things happens. Either they realize what they lost and adjust their behavior, or they do not. And if they do not, you learn something valuable. You know that they were never worth your effort in the first place. This applies everywhere. At work, stop trying to impress people who have already decided you are mediocre. Stop seeking approval from managers who do not see your value. Focus your energy on people who recognize your competence. Build alliances with people who respect your work, and let the rest wonder why you stopped caring about their opinion. In relationships, stop chasing people who make you feel small. Stop trying to win over people who treat you as an option. Walk away, cleanly, quietly, and watch how quickly dynamics shift when you stop being available. And here is the more profound truth. The moment you stop seeking approval, you become more attractive. Because people are drawn to certainty, they are drawn to people who do not need them. They are drawn to people who have their own frame and refuse to abandon it. And when you stop bending yourself to fit into someone else's world, you force them to enter yours, and that is where power lives. You avoid conflict because you think it protects your relationships. You smooth over tension. You let things slide. You tell yourself that keeping the peace is more important than being right, and over time you become invisible. Because relationships without conflict are relationships without respect. And respect is not built in comfort. It is built in confrontation. Here is what that looks like. Someone crosses a boundary. You feel it. You know it is wrong, but instead of addressing it immediately, you let it go. You tell yourself it is not a big deal. You tell yourself it is not worth the fight. And maybe it is not, but the next time they cross it again, and the time after that. Because you never drew the line. You never made it clear that certain behaviors are unacceptable. You optimized for comfort, and now you are trapped in a dynamic in which you constantly accommodate someone else's disrespect. Nietzsche understood that strength is not found in harmony. It is found in the ability to impose boundaries, the ability to say no, the ability to endure discomfort in defense of your values. And men who cannot do that are not strong. They are compliant. They are managed. They are shaped by external forces instead of shaping the world around them. Here is the reversal. Conflict is not the enemy of respect. Conflict is the foundation of respect. Because conflict reveals where you stand, it shows what you will tolerate and what you will not. It tells whether you have a spine or whether you can be bent. And people respect those who cannot be bent. They do not respect those who fold under the slightest pressure. This does not mean you create conflict for the sake of conflict. It means you do not avoid necessary conflict. When someone disrespects you, you address it calmly, directly, without emotion. You state the boundary. You explain the consequences if it is crossed again, and then you enforce it. No warnings, no second chances, no explanations. You simply follow through. And that follow-through is what builds respect. Apply this everywhere. At work, when someone takes credit for your work, address it immediately. Do not let it fester. Do not hint at your frustration. State it clearly. In relationships, when someone crosses a boundary, address it immediately. Do not let it slide. Do rationalize it. State the boundary. Explain the consequence. And if they cross it again, walk away, because your boundaries mean nothing if you do not enforce them. And if you do not enforce them, you teach people that your word has no weight. And here is what happens when you start enforcing boundaries. Some people will push back. Some people will test you. Some people will call you cold, rigid, and unreasonable. Let them, because the people who respect boundaries will stay, and the people who do not will leave. And you do not want the second group in your life anyway. You think being agreeable makes you likable. Going along with others makes you easy to work with. You think saying yes to everything makes you valuable. It does not. It makes you forgettable, because agreeable people do not stand out. They blend in, they adapt, they mirror. And no one respects a mirror. Here is what that looks like. You are in a group. Someone proposes an idea. You disagree with it. But instead of voicing your disagreement, you stay quiet. You tell yourself it is not worth the argument. You tell yourself you will go along with the group, and the idea may work out, perhaps it does not. But either way, you were invisible in that moment, because you had no position, you had no frame, you simply followed. Nietzsche despised this. He called it the herd instinct, the desire to blend in, the desire to avoid standing out, the desire to be accepted by the group at the cost of your own individuality. And he saw that this instinct destroys greatness. Because greatness requires standing apart, it requires having a position that others do not share. It requires being willing to be disliked in the service of your own values. Here is the reversal. Disagreement creates presence. When you voice a position that goes against the group, you become visible, you become memorable, you become someone with your own mind, and that creates respect. Not because people agree with you, but because you are willing to stand alone, and standing alone signals strength. It signals that you are not dependent on group approval. It signals that you have your own frame, and you will not abandon it to fit in. This does not mean you disagree for the sake of disagreeing. It means you do not suppress your actual position to maintain false harmony. If you disagree, you say so, clearly, calmly, without apology. You state your position. You explain your reasoning if it is relevant, and then you let others decide how they want to respond. Some will respect you for it, some will not. And the ones who do not were going to respect you anyway. Apply this everywhere. At work, when you disagree with a strategy, voice it. Do not hide behind politeness. Do not wait for someone else to say it first. State your position. In social settings, when you disagree with the group consensus, say so. Do not go along just to avoid tension. Have your own opinion, have your own frame, and let others adjust to you. Because when you stop adjusting to everyone else, you force them to take you seriously. And here is the final truth. The people who respect you most are not the people who always agree with you. They are the people who see that you have a backbone. They are the people who know that you cannot be swayed by social pressure. They are the people who know that you stand for something. And standing for something, even when it is uncomfortable, is what separates powerful men from compliant ones. Now you see the pattern. Comfort weakens you. Security makes you passive. Approval makes you controllable. And every time you optimize for ease, for peace, for harmony, you hand over a piece of your authority. You become smaller. You become quieter. You become manageable. And men who are manageable do not command respect. They do not inspire fear. They do not shape the world around them. They react to it. They adapt to it. They survive in it. But they do not dominate it. Nietzsche saw this clearly. He saw that strength is built in discomfort, that power is built in conflict, that respect is built in distance, and he saw that most men will never accept this, because accepting this requires abandoning everything they were taught. It requires seeing that kindness without boundaries is weakness, that availability without selectivity is desperation, that agreeability without conviction is invisibility. And most men are not ready to see that, because seeing that means admitting they have been complicit in their own irrelevance. But you are still here, and that means something. It means you see the game now. You see that every time you explain yourself to someone who isn't listening, you weaken your position. You see that every time you made yourself available to someone who did not value your time, you destroyed your leverage. You see that every time you avoided conflict to keep the peace, you taught people that your boundaries are negotiable. And once your boundaries are negotiable, you have no authority. You have no frame. You have no power. Here is what happens if you do nothing. You continue reacting. You continue explaining. You continue seeking approval. You continue avoiding discomfort. And over time, you become a ghost. You are present, but no one notices. You speak, but no one listens. You act, but no one cares, because you trained them not to. You trained them to see you as background, as a utility, as someone who will always be there, always accommodating and constantly bending. And people do not respect that. They take it for granted. Here is what happens if you adjust. You stop reacting to every provocation. You stop explaining yourself to people who are not listening. You stop seeking approval from people who do not respect you. You stop avoiding conflict when boundaries are crossed. You stop being agreeable when you actually disagree. And slowly, the dynamic shifts. People start approaching you differently. They start respecting your time. They start valuing your opinion. They start testing you less. Because they see that you cannot be managed or controlled, you cannot be bent. And that shift from being managed to being respected, is not comfortable. Some people will not like the new version of you. Some people will call you cold. Some people will call you difficult. Let them, because the people who respected the old version of you were not respecting you. They respected your compliance, and compliance is not respect. It is convenient. Here is your challenge. Pick one area of your life where you have been too available, too agreeable, too accommodating, and pull back. Do not announce it. Do not explain it. Just pull back. Let people wonder. Let them adjust. Let them know that access to you is not guaranteed, and watch how the dynamic changes. Watch how people start valuing your time. Watch how people start respecting your boundaries. Watch how people start taking you seriously. This is not cruelty. This is not manipulation. This is realism. This is understanding that respect is not given, it is commanded. And it is commanded through distance, through boundaries, through selective engagement, through refusal to play games you did not consent to. And once you understand that, you stop being a victim of social dynamics. You start shaping them. Nietzsche understood that the strong do not seek comfort, they seek challenge. They do not seek security, they seek growth. They do not seek approval, they seek dominance. And dominance is not loud, it is not aggressive. It is not performative. It is quiet. It is certain. It is the refusal to be moved by forces that do not serve you. If you found value in this, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a like if this shifted something in you. Subscribe if you want more truths that contradict the comfortable lies you were raised on. And if this hit you, write "I am the strategist" once in the comments, just to mark the day your mindset changed. You are not here to be liked. You are not here to be comfortable. You are not here to make others feel safe. You are here to command respect. You are here to shape your environment. You are here to dominate your domain. And domination begins the moment you stop optimizing for comfort and start optimizing for power. That moment is now.